please. I also ask that everyone update your name and pronouns and to please keep yourself muted. Artworks proposed for City of Boston property are reviewed at public meetings of the Boston Art Commission. The BAC is the commissioning body for the City of Boston. Working together with the Public Art team and the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, the BAC is an independent board composed of 2 ex officio and 7 appointed volunteer art and design professionals that holds public meetings to review, discuss, and vote on matters concerning the city's art collection. The BAC has exclusive authority to approve and commission artworks intended to be added to the city's collection or placed on city property. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and the Boston Art Commission believe that public art is any artwork installed in publicly accessible spaces where they can be experienced by everyone. We engage in discussions about public art in Boston in order to foster the creation and collection of artworks that reflect the people, ideas, histories, and futures of Boston, which is on the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts people. We acknowledge the continuing presence of the Massachusetts as well as the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples. We also recognize the Indigenous peoples represented in the city's residents in addition to those in the diaspora. Our meetings are generally held the second Tuesday of each month to review current public art projects cited on or proposed for City of Boston property, and we hope you'll continue to join us. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture has a dedicated public art team that manages all daily operations and duties related to public art projects cited on or proposed for city property. This team facilitates the Boston Art Commission's monthly meetings and manages all phases of Boston's public art projects in collaboration with the Boston Art Commission, community members, and colleagues of the City of Boston. I'm joined today by the public art team, Jessica Kami, data coordinator, Sarah Rodrigo, public art project manager, and Trisha Gilrain, collections manager, who will be helping to facilitate this meeting. Trisha will add our contact information to the chat. I will now hand it over to Chair Mark Pasnick, who will be calling the meeting to order and going over a little bit more instruction.
Thank you, Karen, and welcome everybody. I'm calling this public hearing to order at 4:05 p.m. Today, the Boston Art Commission will be holding its monthly public meeting. I will now take a roll call of the commissioners to confirm a quorum. After I state your name, commissioners, please say here. Camilo Alvarez.
Here.
John Andres.
Here.
Michael Canizzo.
Here.
Cara Elliott Ortega.
Here.
Bob Freeman.
Here.
Brian Hone.
Here.
And Kim Pinder. I don't believe she is here. However, we do have a quorum, and so we can continue with the meeting. We will now review meeting minutes from the previous June 8th meeting of the Boston Art Commission. Are there any comments or modifications any commissioner would like to make at this time? Hearing no comments, I wonder if there's a motion to accept the minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Thank you, Bob. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Great, thank you. That was John. Okay. And so I'll read off commissioners and say yes if you agree with the motion. Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
And I also approve the motion, so the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. On this next slide, you'll see the agenda we will be following today. The agendas for these meetings are always publicly posted on boston.gov. And we will begin today with the director's report and then move on to presentations for review. At the time of presentations, we will provide you with information about how you as members of the public can participate in the conversation. So next up, Karen.
Thanks, Mark. So we have a few presentations for review today for short-term projects. We have PaintBox 2021, which will include 90 sites distributed across Boston neighborhoods. Boston Uncornered, a short-term installation at Christopher Columbus Park by artist John Hewitt and proposed by College Bound Dorchester. And East Boston Seawalls, which are murals at various locations proposed by Harper Arts and Pangea Seed. We also have What Do We Have in Common, a short-term installation by artist Janet Zweig and proposed for the Boston Common by Now and There and the Friends of the Public Garden. And we also have the final design for Memory Diffusion for the Boston Arts Academy interior in Fenway by the artist Masari Studios and proposed by the City of Boston. And we also have the artist selection for the Adams Street branch of the Boston Public Library as proposed by the City of Boston. And I have also a quick update that we are finalizing the MOU with the Boston Foundation, and our Assistant Corporation Counsel has reached out to the offices of the Boston Foundation and Hank Willis Thomas to make sure everyone is comfortable with the final draft, and updates to follow at the next meeting when it's finalized. Long-term project updates at the JP Boston Public Library at Curtis Hall. The project installation will be completed in September. And Joe Wardwell will be installing his artwork with Nakia Hill over the summer at the Roxbury Library. And we're looking forward to Monica Bravo's installation at the East Boston Police Station this fall. 4 projects are currently in final design phase. The play team with Marlon Forrester and Studio Luz are now working on their final design after you approved their preliminary design last month. And the artists for Hyde Square are reviewing their design based on feedback they received from you at their advisory review in June. Masari Studios is here to present their final design for the BAA, and final design for other artwork. The other artwork at the BAA by Simon Donovan and Ben Olmsted will be presented this fall after they receive the necessary site approvals from the Public Improvement Commission, because that one will be on the sidewalk outside the school. 3 projects.
Yeah, or I don't know, the link on there.
3 projects are in preliminary design, both artworks for Vine Street and the entryway artwork for the Roxbury branch of the BPL by Jeremy Sobek Harrison. 3 other contracts are pending. Jenny Sabin, the artist for Ruggles Corridor, and Ricardo Dean 5 Gomez, the artist for the Roxbury branch exterior site. They both signed their contracts and we are waiting approval from legal. The artists for the Engine 42 fire station are negotiating an agreement, and we're looking forward to bringing them to you soon. And tonight we are presenting one artist selection for you, the Adams Street branch of the BPL. And at the moment we have no calls to artists open to share with you. However, we are in the process of reviewing submissions for the Transformative Public Art Call, and some of those will require your review, and we'll share those with you in August. And I'll hand it back to you, Mark.
Just one question. How was the response to the calls for artists on the Transformative Public Art?
It was good. Yeah, so I think we have 90 something in all.
Oh, wow. That's better than good. That sounds pretty great.
We had 3 different opportunities. So we're really excited to, share a real diverse array of projects with you in August.
Great. Thanks to everybody who spent time on that. We'll now move on to items for the agenda, on the agenda for public review, testimony, and commission vote. And on this slide, you can see how you can participate in today's meeting as members of the public. During the meeting, please keep yourself muted. If you have technical difficulties during the meeting, you can ask questions in the chat and a member of the staff will help you. After presentations and commissioners' questions, I will invite the public to offer testimony. If you would like to participate, you can press the raise your hand icon and staff will put you in a digital line for comment. You can also let staff know that you have a question in the chat. If you're calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. Please remember to keep your comments on topic and brief. In the next slide, our goal is to make this meeting a good experience for all so that community members feel comfortable sharing their feedback and questions. Please be mindful and respectful of other people's time when speaking so that other participants feel comfortable adding their comments. You can submit longer written testimony to our email address at bac@boston.gov. While you may disagree with other attendees' testimony, you may not interrupt them during their allotted time. Please keep questions and comments project specific. If you're called on, please state your name, title, program, and organization if relevant. We will begin with the PaintBox 2021 program. Tricia, will you provide us with an overview of this year's program?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Pasnick. PaintBox is an annual program that introduces emerging and curious artists seeking to expand their practice into the public realm. The program also highlights artists in their own neighborhoods and introduces local artists into City of Boston processes. This year's call was released on May 1st. Our office received 438 applications, and we're very excited about the interest in this year's program. We have been working with the Department of Transportation to identify approximately 90 locations for the selected artists across Boston neighborhoods. The number of locations is subject to the availability of utility boxes, as many are scheduled for removal or repair. I put all locations in your folder, but you will see planned neighborhood statistics on this slide. Artists will be selected by staff and notified this week, at which time they are free to paint at their selected location. Our collaborator from the Streets Cabinet, Jacob Wessel, is here with us this afternoon in case there are any specific questions about the identification of the boxes or the distribution across the neighborhoods. And I'll pass it back to you, Chair Pasnick. Thank you.
Thanks, Tricia. That's an exciting number. 438 is amazing. Seems like our responses to many of our projects are going up and up, which is great to see. I wanted to open it up first to any questions from commissioners or any comments. Hearing none, we can see if there's any public comments on this program.
I have one question. Just Karen and Tricia, can you just talk a little bit about what might be in the works for the folks who aren't able to move forward, since we got so many applications and we're only able to do 90? I mean, only able to do 90.
Sure. So we are planning on letting people know who were reviewed, and we thought they'd be really great for the program, that we'll be looking to contact them for future ones. So we really hope to do more in the future. This is an annual program, so we'll be letting people know that we weren't able to do everyone in this batch, but we'll be having more opportunities in the future. And we got so many great responses, and unfortunately, some of the people who had been perfect for this year, we just couldn't fit them in just quantity wise. Jacob, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Oh, you all covered it. Sounds great.
Okay.
Great. Well, thanks for partnering with us on this. Any other commissioner comments? Are there any comments from members of the public? Sounds like there aren't any. I don't think we have anything to vote on, do we? At this stage?
We'd love to vote on just your approval to cite these boxes.
Oh, based on the what you just presented. Okay, got it. So maybe you could help us construct a motion.
Sure. We'd love, approval to cite this year's 2021 PaintBox collection at sites across the city of Boston. Do you have anything else, Tricia, that you would recommend as part of that, as presented at today's meeting?
Yeah, I would just say as presented at this date.
And do you want to mention anything about that staff is doing the selection process, or is that not necessary?
Yeah, I think, the way we're interpreting, for short-term projects, that there can be administrative review pending approval from the board, you all of the Art Commission, on, the siting, and that we get the okay to install them. So we could say, that you approve, as presented today, the staff, the public art team's administrative review of the 2021 PaintBox in sites across the city of Boston.
Okay. Great. I think you have all the language there. I see Allison has a raised hand. Allison, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, hi, but I didn't mean to interrupt the vote. I'm sorry.
No, you're welcome to make a comment now.
Oh, okay, sure. Trish, I remember last year's 2020 Fenway list was about 7 boxes, but most of them did not happen after all. And this year it's just 2. Maybe you can Was there something that happened that Public Works didn't approve those boxes from last year, or all the ones near Fenway Park?
Yeah, so those boxes, because of COVID-19, some artists weren't able to paint, and then the season ended for painting. So we're hoping that those artists can continue to pursue the projects that they've been assigned now that it is summertime.
But they just don't need new approval, is what you're saying, that they were approved before, so we don't need to vote on them today?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. So there's actually more than two coming, forthcoming in the Fenway. Is that right? Then?
Yes, so this slide represents the 2021 artists.
Right. But, right. And Mission Hill is not included in 2021. Is that right?
I'm happy to take this one. So there, in some neighborhoods, there have been external organizations that have funded their own PaintBox installations. And so in those neighborhoods, for example, Mass Art and their Spark program has just installed a bunch of paint boxes throughout Mission Hill. And so we've focused on some neighborhoods that haven't had recent installations.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Jacob. So the ones in Mission Hill were not funded by PaintBox then? Okay, I was confused. I thought they were. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for your question, Allison, and for the clarification. So it seems we have a motion. Is there somebody willing to make this motion for us from the commission?
I can make a motion, or at least try it.
Sorry?
So I can make a motion, or at least try one. So I'll make a motion to cite this year's 2021 PaintBox installations at sites across Boston, as presented by the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture staff on July 17th for Boston Art Commission meeting.
July 13th.
Sorry, 13th.
Getting ahead of yourself, but that's okay. Okay, that sounds like a very good motion. Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Great, thank you, Camilo. So now I will read off the roll call for commissioners to vote. Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. This is exciting to see all these new prospects for the neighborhoods coming. Okay. Let's see. Our next project is Boston Uncornered, a short-term installation proposed for Christopher Columbus Park. Jackie Russell is here to present the proposal. Jackie, please feel free to unmute yourself and begin presenting.
Hi, thank you for having me. I represent Boston Uncornered, which is an art exhibit with photographs created by John Hewitt. And the organization, you can click through. I don't know, should I tell you that to click through, or because we can look at it. I'll tell you a little bit about Boston Uncornered. Boston Uncornered is a project of College Bound Dorchester. The project itself is art that shows that we are more similar than we are dissimilar. And the photographs, which you'll see, are photographs like 5x8 of Boston politicians, CEOs, corporate leaders, and also gang members and former gang members. And next to each story, if you click through, you'll see they have a little a story. Next to each photograph, there's a little square, and in that square is the story of each person. And the story tells about a time in their life where they felt cornered or trapped, and how they became uncornered or able to fulfill their potential. And all of the stories share that it was the connection to somebody else who helped this person through their challenge. And in short, gang members also need our support and help in order to overcome the challenges that they face every day. One of the founders of Boston Uncornered says, being a gang member is similar to being a smoker. You wake up every day and you want to quit. And by noon, you're looking for, that last cigarette in the couch cushions, because it's a hard thing to get out of. And unless you can get out of, you need people's support in order to do so. So this photo exhibit by John Hewitt, who is an internationally famous photographer. In fact, he's going to the Olympics in a few weeks, and that is his typical gig. One of his typical gigs is to shoot sports heroes. And he actually devised this, this project because he felt like when he met people, the gang members, former gang members of Boston Uncornered, he felt like they were the heroes that he was used to photographing, sports athletes, but nobody knew about them and nobody knew about their challenges. So this exhibit, we've had it in Boston Common, was our first time in 2019. Last year in 2020, we had it at the Seaport, which is, you'll see here, this show. And what we hope to do this year, with your permission, is to bring it to Christopher Columbus Park. But the difference this year is that everything will look the same. It's big 5x8 on mesh vinyl, and then it's wood framing, which is held down by cement bags and blocks, and there's no staking into the ground. And these are some of the people that you see here who have been photographed. But this year is different because in addition to these people and some others, we have photographed the five mayoral candidates, and each of one, representing a person of color. And so this is a new beginning for Boston, and we're excited to bring these portraits of the 5 candidates. We're calling it the mayoral edition, to this project. And each of the candidates also shares his or her story about how they became uncornered and the challenges they faced. So, it's a way of bringing people together, of feeling united, especially as we want to show the diversity of our city and this new level that we're reaching with the mayoral candidates of diversity in our city. So we're really excited about this year's exhibit, and we're hoping to receive your permission to have it at Christopher Columbus Park.
Great, thank you. So I will open it up to any questions from commissioners now.
Was that a map as to where they would be placed that I saw prior to this slide?
Yeah, if you go back one slide, please, Commissioner, you'll see it was recommended to us that the photographs line not on the Harbor Walk, but on the grass next to the Harbor Walk as it goes from Joe's down to the Long Wharf to the Marriott. So it'll be along that grass path. I neglected to say, which is ridiculous on my part, and I apologize, that the whole point of College Bound Dorchester and the Boston Uncornered movement is to help former gang members get into college, get their GEDs, get into college, earn a degree so that they can have a professional life and show to their community there is a better way to live and it can be done. And to create what they call the core influencers, who are the gang leaders, into positive role models within the community, so that people change from the gang life into trying to get into school, seeing education as the path out of poverty. And it's been working. We've been doing this really Bain did a study from 2018 until 2020, and they showed tremendous results in terms of reduced crime in the areas of Dorchester and Boston where we have been doing this work. Because the majority, I don't know if you all know this, but the majority of homicides in our city occur on just 5% of the street corners. And the youth involved who are involved in these crimes are just 1% of all of Boston youth. So it's a large percentage, a small percentage rather, of people who are involved in a great deal of the homicides and violent crime in our city. So it's like, change that 1% and you can make a greater improvement in our whole city. it's wildly moving and inspiring. I'm not doing it justice at all, but this this exhibit, it brings it to the public and helps people understand there is another way, and we have a great organization here in our city that's working towards solutions. Okay, now I'm going to stop because I know I'm going over my time. Sorry. Any other questions?
Well, just a question and a comment and a brief question. Thank you for your presentation, Jackie, and also it really brings to the public people that are known and people that are unknown, people that have been working behind the scenes and have not really been in the public light. I recognize a number of people. How were these individuals selected? I understand how the gang members were selected, but how were the other people selected to be photographs?
We put out requests to people in the city who are government leaders and CEOs and media people. We have some sports people. Devin McCarty is involved. I know we have a request out to Jaylen Brown, but I don't know if he's accepted or not. So it's people that we have reached out to. We are always open, though, to have more people who want to be involved who we haven't reached out to, but that's really how it's happened.
Thank you. I really love seeing Callie Crosley, her picture up.
I know, she was great. She was really great and gracious with her time to do it.
Thanks again for your presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question for maybe it's Kara. Are there any issues with political figures being included since we're being, it seems, even-handed across all candidates?
I think so if it's nonpartisan.
Okay. So no issues in your mind? Okay.
Yeah, no.
Great. Any other questions from commissioners? Can also open it up to any public comments or testimony at this time. I'm not seeing any hands raised. So with that, maybe we should form a motion. Again, is this, Karen, what would the motion be that we need to produce now?
Just that you approve the installation of Uncornered at Christopher Columbus Park.
Okay. That
As
sounds like a great motion. Would somebody like to make that motion?
Well, so moved, or do I have to state the motion?
I think we can just use the language that that Karen just gave us.
Thank you.
So do I hear a second?
Second.
Great. So all those in favor? So Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. So the motion passes. Thank you very much. This seems like a very exciting show. We look forward to seeing it in Christopher Columbus Park.
Thank you so much.
Mark, we were planning on having East Boston Seawalls go next, but they need a moment. So we're going to ask if Now and There and the Friends of the Public Garden would be willing to hop in. So I don't know if Liz and Paulina are ready, but we'll be skipping ahead to their slides.
Okay, got it. So do you want to lead us in on that? Let's see.
Yeah, Liz Visa from the Friends. I will begin, and we are a number of us speaking, so I will be brief. I assume my video is working, and
yes.
Just very exciting to be here, exciting to present this project to you. It's celebration of our half century of partnership with the city in caring for the Boston Common, the Public Garden, Commonwealth Avenue Mall. We chose to do a temporary art installation on the Common, and it was an inspired choice to work with curators Now and There and to choose public artist, nationally known Janet Zweig. Our goal that we charged them with was to spark curiosity, to spark surprise, to help people connect with what it means to take care of common resources And I'm going to let the team from Now and There go more deeply into this project and the elements of it. And it has really beautifully satisfied our goals. And we're very excited to see it out in the common this fall. So with that, I will pass it on to, I think, Paulina, are you next?
I am. Thank you so much, Liz. Hello, everyone. My name is Paulina, and I'm the project manager on behalf of Now and There for this installation. This project has both physical installation elements, a durational performance, and offerings or takeaways for the public. I will briefly cover all of them and then leave room for questions. The criteria for this project was to activate multiple areas of the park, instill a sense of curiosity, pride, and ownership of the common, highlight the care that goes into maintaining this beloved shared space, and demonstrate the essential nature of this public resource in our city. It is with this criteria in mind that Now and There selected Janet Zweig as one of the as the artist for this project. Next slide, please. Janet is an artist currently living in New York, but she has really strong ties to Boston. She was a professor at Boston University, as well as a faculty member at Emerson and Boston College of Art. Janet's artistic career is heavily public art focused, with exhibits going back all the way to the 80s. Next slide, please. We hope to do site prep for the object-based components in mid-September. Performance will take place every day for 30 days from September 22nd to October 22nd. And deinstallation and site remediation will start immediately after and take about a week. I will now go over all the physical components of the installation. Next slide, please. The biggest is a handmade wooden cabinet. It is double-sided with 200 in total little drawers on each side. The short sides of the cabinet have enclosed shelves with books. The cabinet is illuminated 24 hours a day from the inside with LED strips, and it will look as if light is coming, emanating from the inside. Next slide, please. The cabinet will be installed with ballast. No excavation is necessary in a prominent spot near the Parkman Bandstand. Inside each of the 200 drawers is an object with a unique question on it. Each one of the different questions is meant to inspire a conversation about common pool resources. Next slide, please. These objects, or as we're calling them, markers, are about 3 inches tall and 14 by 11 inches in the length and width. So they are a little bit bigger than a piece of paper, or about the size of a small shoebox. Each one houses LED lights that are supported by a rechargeable battery to keep them well lit. Next slide, please. Here are some of the other questions that would be used. As I said, each one is unique. Since Boston is a multicultural city, 34 of them will be in languages other than English. The boxes will also have QR codes on them that will take people to the landing pages in their respective languages that explain the nature of the project. Installing these objects and maintaining them, swapping out the batteries, will constitute the performative piece of this work. Each day, a group of staff will take out about 8 to 9 of these objects and secure them on pre-installed in-ground cylinders in the park. Once installed, each little box will stay in its spot until the end of the project for park visitors to discover. Each day, we will add 8 new boxes, activating more and more areas of the park. We will be doing so one park section at a time. Next slide, please. We have worked closely with the Friends and the Parks Department to make sure that our presence would not interfere with other programming in the common. Each day, we plan to activate a particular section of the park, gradually moving from the inside of the park to its borders. Some areas already have other programming, and we're staying away from them altogether. Next slide, please. Due to their small size, the boxes will not be a visual disturbance to the natural beauty of the park. For the regulars, they will add an element of discovery by changing the familiar landscape every day. We hope that people will enjoy finding them accidentally as well as looking for them on purpose. Next slide, please. The installation and daily maintenance or care of these objects is meant to take place during the day by the specialty staff who would be trained by the artist to also engage with the willing park visitors in conversations about the commons as a concept, as well as what we may have in common with each other. If a visitor wanted to learn more, they're encouraged to select a book from the specialized collection of literature on the topics that are housed in the big wooden cabinet. The books will have something for everyone, for kids, for adults. There's fiction, nonfiction, poetry, prose, you name it. There will also be selections in languages other than English. A visitor would be able to select a book to take home and encouraged to pass it on to someone after they're done as a way to continue sharing the common resources. Guides are recruited via open calls through internet ads, as well as direct outreach to local community organizations and schools. We're committed to hiring 50% of guides that represent BIPOC communities, and applicants are encouraged to complete an anonymous survey for us to gather this info. Next slide, please. The performance will take place every day, with weather permitting, between September 22nd and October 22nd. We do have contingency plans in place on how to continue the maintenance without interruptions, even if the Boston unpredictable weather discourages us from being in the park. The last 4 to 5 days of this installation, no new objects are added, but all 200 of them are visible. Then they will all disappear at once. Our site remediation efforts will be enhanced by Cambridge Landscaping, who are already contracted to care for the park. Parks Department has granted us permission to proceed with our proposed installation plan as it stands right now. Next slide, please. We do also have a meeting on the schedule tomorrow with Patricia Mendez and her team to review this project and collect further feedback on how to make this project more accessible for all of Boston's residents. And next slide, and I think that's it for my presentation, and we're now open for questions.
Okay, so are the commissioners, well, I maybe have a start of a question. So the objects will be fixed in place in the drawer, or are they able to be moved? Okay, they're fixed.
The objects are fixed in place. This would be the site prep that we are doing right before the start of the performance.
Mm-hmm. Great. And in terms of languages, are there any examples of indigenous languages that might be used, given our interest in foregrounding the presence of indigenous people and their histories in our city?
That was not something that we currently had. We went with 6 languages that are most spoken in the city of Boston. Leah, Kate, do you have something that you would be able to add to here?
I can jump in. It's a great suggestion, Mark, and we're working with the friends to make sure that the guides themselves are from indigenous populations. I think we can look at the languages. We are in fabrication right now on those boxes, so we'll have to do that real fast.
And Mark, I want to just make a comment about your question about boxes being fixed in place. They are in the cabinet, if I understand your question. Then they get taken out by the guys. They get wheelbarrowed around the common, and then they get affixed into pre-assigned places that will have foundations so that they will be securely placed in the park for a month or for the duration as boxes go out. And I was not sure if you were asking whether they were fixed in place in the cabinet or in the landscape.
I was just wondering whether they'll walk away. I guess, and you answered that, it seems.
Yeah, they will not walk away.
Okay, great.
We're taking strides in order for them not to walk away.
Are there other questions?
Speaking of walking away, and I think this is permitted, I'd love to know a little bit about some of the books that are going to be in the cabinet and then how those get replenished.
We are getting enough, I think, to last us for the entire duration of the project. There are so many titles on there. Would it be possible to submit just a reading list after this meeting? I have them all in a ginormous spreadsheet.
Just going to say, I'm happy to share the bibliography as part of our package. I think we said we could do that. As Paulina was just saying, there's so much. And I just want to also just add that each of the books, it's a taking library. It's not a real lending library, but each of the books will have a book plate designed by Janet inside. So when you open it up, it's going to read that this was part of the project. What do we have in common? And it has information about the project. And the idea, it also asks people to pass the book on after they're done taking a look at it. So the idea is that this project continues as its own kind of common pool resource overall. But yeah, the bibliography is quite extensive. As Paulina said, there's something for everyone. We have, we just got in a bunch of the children's books, one of the children's book titles that we're using. So we're happy to share that list with you all.
That's great. Thank you.
And Braille too, I believe will be, some of the books will be offered in Braille.
Yes.
Great. Other commissioner comments? Camilo, did you have a question?
I'm just trying to envision. So the shelf gets removed by a performer, if you will, supplied, and then gets walked away to a designated area where it gets placed, and that becomes an empty shelf to a certain degree, and it's still lit. So at night there will be these lights, you know, in the landscape, if you will.
Yes. Everything is lit 24 hours a day. So the shelves have little drawers on them, so they will not look like empty shelves. But the lights that are sort of around each one of those little doors, they will become a little bit brighter once the box is removed. So the cabinet itself will also change its look ever so subtly. It will be lit at all times, but it will change how some areas of it are lit throughout the duration of the project.
So as I understand it, the actual object that gets removed is what lights the entire form?
No, the form is lit independently of the objects. The objects are lit by themselves and the form is lit by inside lights.
Okay.
Yep.
I was thinking that that as each one it would get darker and darker and darker, the entire form, but no.
No, if anything, it's the opposite. The objects, once they're at the time that they're inside the cabinet, they are blocking a little bit of the light. So once they get taken out, if anything, the lights around the empty shelf become a little bit brighter. So.
Yeah, and I'll just add that the cabinet was inspired by like library card catalogs. So if you think about like a drawer like that, like you're kind of opening them this wooden cabinet and a drawer comes out, it's kind of like that. So there is a door in front of, it's not just like an empty shelf or anything like that.
Great. Any other comments from commissioners or questions? Hearing none, I will open it up to the public. Any comments or testimonies from members of the public? All right, I don't hear any there either. So next up would be a vote. I think a motion to approve the design approach for this site. Is that, Karen, does that sound correct?
Yeah, to improve the installation as presented, unless there's anything else you want to add.
I would like to add with a recommendation to consider Indigenous people's languages or books, perhaps, if the time constraints don't allow it as part of the rest of the project, in order to demonstrate a fuller perspective, spectrum of our population. So maybe that's just a recommendation, and that the team can determine whether that's feasible. Does that sound okay to the team?
That seems fair. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Great.
This will also be up during Indigenous Peoples Day.
Okay, so it's even more pressure to have some reflection on that.
That is definitely in our, on top of mind for us.
Okay, great. I think it would be good if you could find a way to make it work with the fabrication schedule. Do I hear a motion from the commission to that effect?
Mark, real quick, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
Okay, thanks, Brian. I guess I could make the motion that we accept the, or that we approve the project as presented to us today, with the recommendation that the presence of Indigenous peoples' languages be considered. So do I hear a second?
I second that.
Okay, John, thank you. And I will go through the list for your vote. So Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And I'm yes as well. And Brian, you've noted your abstention or your recusal, I guess. So the motion passes. Thank you very much. It seems like it'll be a very exciting project to witness this fall.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and
Excellent.
thanks.
Okay, Karen, who will be next now?
So we'll have Harper Arts now. So I think we might need to unshare and reshare the screen. Sarah, is that right? And we'll next have East Boston seawalls with various artists, and the proponent is Harper Arts and Pangea Seed. And Matthew Pollock should be presenting.
Okay, could you tell me what slide number that is by any chance?
27.
27, okay. Great, thank you. So next up is the East Boston seawall. Sarah, would you like to give us some background information?
Yes, thank you, Chair Pasnick. Seawalls, Artists for Oceans, returns to Boston for the second year, July 19th through 25th. On this slide, you'll see two of the murals created through last year's event. On the top is Hope and Resistance by Artists for Humanity. On the bottom is Rising Tides by Sophie Tuttle. Both projects are sited on the Mary Ellen Welch Greenway in East Boston. You may remember when they came before the commission last summer. Matthew Pollock, the director of Harper Arts, the managing organization, is here to present this year's proposals, several of which are on city-owned walls. The public art team's been working closely with Matthew, various partners, including BRM Production Management, Boston Parks and Recreation Department, and licensing departments with the city in support of these projects. And I'd like to welcome Matthew, if you want to unmute.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be back here for the second year of bringing seawalls to Boston. We're really excited to bring more, just a lot more giant murals to EC, and yeah, we've got some really exciting artists that are going to be both local, regional, and national artists that are going to be bringing some incredible designs to city properties. So very excited. So what you're seeing here is basically the mural walk that we're putting together. It includes both this year's and last year's murals. Not all of them are on this A through I. Google only let me use so many dots, but we have a new map that this was basically just being used as a guide for a local architect in East Boston who's developing a new map that's going to be bilingual, English and Spanish. That's a walking tour of all the murals both this year and last year. And it's a little bit of like a figure eight here, and it's about an hour walk, and we're working with several youth groups, East Boston Neighborhood Health Center and the schools, several schools in East Boston, to incorporate this into youth curriculum around the neighborhood. So not only are we partnering with two of the schools that share a building this year, but we're also partnering with the rest of the schools to one, engage in what will hopefully be future murals at those schools, as well as getting them involved in this year's murals, which are at the McKay and EEC school building. The first mural, though, we're sharing with you is Bo Stanton. He's an artist from New York who will be bringing an incredible piece of art to the East Boston Fire Station. This is also along the East Boston Greenway. So visitors to the Greenway will enjoy both the murals that we did last year, other murals that have been painted along the Greenway by other projects, and this new mural by Bo Stanton, which incorporates several of his core styles that he paints in. Actually, he has depicted McKay, whose name is the school that we're painting at this year is named after McKay, who's a famous shipbuilder, clipper shipbuilder in East Boston. There's a lot of neighborhood pride in being, our history of being a shipbuilding neighborhood, our history of being a home to a welcoming home to immigrants, and several of McKay's ships were immigrant carrying ships to the US from Europe and across many different countries. And the mural is about sea level rise and warming seas. So you're going to have a portrait of Donald McKay turned into sort of this statue-like style that you see from the image below. And as you can see, he's very used to painting these sort of statue-like faces with ships and water elements. And as you also see that in the background, he's incorporated this like stained glass, this broken stained glass, which is sort of just talking about, and in the stained glass, within the stained glass, he will be incorporating designs and imagery and colors that represent the many different cultures of the East Boston community. So that will develop a little bit further as to like the greater detail inside the stained glass. But what you're seeing here is kind of, due to sea level rise, the mural speaks to, that we have to work together to kind of save our history and work together toward a better future. So Market 27 will be at the school. This mural is talking about biodiversity loss and that, we have to work together to provide a healthier environment for the future generation, and that our future generation needs to be one that cares for the ocean in order for us to get to the 30 by 30 that we're hoping for in 2030. So I would talk more about that if I had more time. This one is by Annika Jones, and she is an artist from Florida, and her work speaks to environmental justice and talking about the immigrant Black and Brown communities that are disproportionately impacted by the effects of climate change and sea level rise. And we are really proud to have both Annika and Marka's work side by side, and feel that these will be like the guardians of the playground. These two portraits of children. So the school is extremely excited. We got a letter of support from both principals at the EEC school and the McKay school. We can look at the next slide for another piece. And this is a sketch. It's a preliminary sketch we're working on with the school. This is two emerging local artists who are creating a piece about warming seas. And due to warming seas, we're experiencing a lot of biodiversity loss because our sea life is migrating to colder waters. And so these are sea creatures waiting for the bus to go to a colder place. And this last one is by Sabrina Dorsonville, who you all know. And Sabrina is painting about the sea turtles that we do have here in New England as well, and how the ocean's all connected, and that we have the sea turtle as the reef keeper, and just talking about how, a healthy ocean here in Boston is a healthy ocean everywhere. So we're really excited about this. We have two more to present as well. Felipe Ortiz, we are looking at this side view. This is right beside Sabrina's piece, and Felipe is still working. He's developing a sketch as we come closer to the event, and he will be sort of, if you're familiar with Felipe's work, he's very much a freehander. So his sketches are don't quite show the full rendering as other artists' sketches do. But as you can see here, his painting at Northeastern and paintings around the world, Felipe is a very distinct style of doing what he calls his explosive nature series, and he's going to be bringing that to this wall at EEC. And then this last mural is it's on the back of the EEC building on the left. You can see the wall on the right is marked where Marka's mural is going to be. The wall on the left is where these are some examples of the artist's work. Kai Kalukukui is native from Hawaii, and Taylor Reinhold is a visiting artist from California, and they will be working together to create a text-based mural to sort of work well with Marka's piece to the right, So their piece is very text-based, so it's not kind of overwhelming the space. And you can see an example of their concept on the next slide. And it's, again, bringing back that, or maybe it may not have made it in, but
It didn't make it in, I apologize.
that's
Matt.
okay. So we have, it's a text-based mural. So the text is larger block letters. It's a very positive message of, that there is one ocean, and that, protecting the oceans are, a very healthy, helps to, make a healthy planet, and, that all life depends on the ocean. So it sort of ties all the murals together with a large text piece, which inside of the text, there'll be imagery of sea life. So we're working closely with the school and with faculty, with the principals, with local climate educators, and with East Boston Youth to tie all this, amazing artwork into the students' curriculum. Thank you, everybody, for listening to me try to speak as fast as I humanly possible about all the work. It's just so much happening that it's it's a bit difficult to say all at once in the limited time. But we've had an amazing interaction with the schools, with bow seat ocean awareness programs, which all over the world creates youth activities through art to learn about climate and sea and ocean conservation. So we're working with bow seat and all the schools to bring this into their existing curriculum around environmentalism. So it's really exciting to bring this.
Great, thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks.
Great to see a real spectrum. Oh, Sarah?
I'm sorry, Chair. I'm going to stop sharing just for a second. I added the design for the last piece.
Okay. Yeah. We are tight on time, so I just wanted to.
Thank you for letting me.
I'm not sure if that helped it get in there.
You really have 5 projects here, so it's.
Yeah, it's a big project, and this is just a selection of the murals that we're producing. So there's so much more to come. So.
And Sarah or Karen, I guess, are we looking for a sweeping approval because some of them aren't complete that we've seen? So I guess the question is, would we refer those to staff to continue?
Yeah, you can have us do administrative review for design, but approve the installations and sites.
Okay, great. So let me open it up to commissioners, keeping in mind we are a little tight on time. Any questions?
I do have a question. How are these murals being applied? Are they painted directly onto the building, or are they?
Yes, they're painted directly onto the building.
Have you talked to, I've noticed last year when we approved the murals, they've been painted on concrete. I have to say that I'm concerned about painting directly onto brick. I'm concerned about my background is as an architect and a preservation architect. It's one of the things that we always had concerned about is painting brick because it can trap in moisture and end up causing problems not only to the mural in your case, but the brick. So I was wondering if you've talked to anybody about what type of paint or how.
Yeah, we're using
how that gets applied. So
we're using we're using all of the best masonry primers, brick and masonry primer that is absorbs into the masonry, into the brick and the mortar, and using the highest quality exterior paints to create the imagery, we've received approval from BPS facilities to create the artwork directly on the brick as well.
Well, I sort of have my reservations about it. Maybe that's something that the staff can look further into. I mean, there are special masonry paints that are breathable, so I don't know. I'm just holding off. I have reservations about painting directly onto the brick. So,
Perhaps staff could bring that up with BPS one more time and review. Would
Sure,
that
I
be
think that letter of support, but we can inquire about this.
Okay, other commissioner comments? Other members of the public who'd like to make a comment?
Mark, I have one very quick question. I wasn't sure whether I was seeing, and this is from Matthew. Matthew, I'm Robert Freeman, Commissioner. I wasn't sure if I was seeing examples of the artist's work or some of the artist's work that actually might appear on these walls.
Yeah, you're seeing both in the presentation. Sorry, I had to turn my screen off. I'm not sure, but you are seeing both. The work of Felipe was showing examples of past work. This is showing examples of past work, and the other work did include sketches that will actually be created on the building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I do see a question. The question is, how were the artists chosen?
That's a great question. We have a large team made of built of community members and artists and the school and the greater Seawalls Boston kind of family, and it's an invitational, but we pool from a very large group. We work with a mix of local, regional, national, and international. So the artists were chosen based on their work being able to communicate the issues and topics that we are hoping to bring to the community.
Okay, thank you. And that was a question from a member of the community. So I'm going to maybe make a motion myself and then see how this works. I move that we approve the completed proposals that were presented to us today and require continued staff review of designs not yet completed, with one proviso that that staff should review one more time the issue of painting brick surfaces. Does that sound like a good proposal overall, Karen?
Sure, and Sarah will follow up with BPS about the bricks, and Michael will follow up with everyone, but Michael will loop you in as well.
Great. Okay, so that was the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Robert, for the second. So I will poll for votes. Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes, it's a reserved yes. I mean, I understand the staff looking into this, but and I support the program, but I have concerns about the painting brick in general. So it's a reserve.
If you like, or
maybe I'll abstain. I'll abstain.
okay. Cara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. So the vote passes with one abstention. Michael, I think we should just continue to register your concern about the treatment of the building. So let's have staff follow up on that. Okay. Thank you, Matthew, and we look forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the time.
Great, take care. So who is next now? Sorry, I'm a little lost in our sequence, Karen.
I think we have Masari next.
Okay.
Oh, no, we don't. We have Adams Library. Sorry about that.
Okay, so which slide
so
number?
we go to slide 54.
Okay, slide 54. So our next project for review is for artist selection for the Adams Street branch of the Boston Public Library. Sarah will present to us. Sarah, are you unmuted?
I am. Thank you, Chair. All right. For those of you who may not be familiar with this site, the Adams Street branch is a library, a branch library in South Dorchester. The current location opened in 1951. It's a neighborhood branch. It's heavily patronized by residents and families in Dorchester. The new building will double the size of the previous branch and will feature an accessible front door on Adams Street, a larger community room, a conference room, study room, music room, and a reading garden that does already exist. This project's a collaboration between the Boston Public Library and the Public Facilities Department and architecture firm NADA. I think I pronounced that correctly for once. In conjunction with those project partners, we identified some possible sites for public art, both of which are on the exterior of the building. The first is in the reading garden, which you can see here, if you can see my mouse, and the other is in the rainwater garden, which is over here between these two wings, between the children and adult sections of the library. The reading garden, including an existing oak tree, are of prime importance to the community in this site, information that was included in the call. This call was put out last year, and we received 114 applications for this project. We convened an artist review working group to review the responsive applications independently, and then met with them twice, first to select artists for interviews, and again to determine 3 artists, and then to determine an artist to recommend to the commission after those interviews. I'm now going to show you a selection of each finalist's past work, briefly summarize their preliminary narrative proposals, and share with you the working group's recommendation. And I'd like to point out that Commissioner Andres was on the working group, and he may jump in at different points. I'd welcome that. The first finalist was Christian Moeller. Christian Moeller came to the fine arts from an architectural background with a strong interest in large-scale 2- and 3-dimensional works and their integration into public space. Many of his works are kinetic, often realized using concepts of gravity-driven motion. Over the years, he built a deep and complex experience based on large-scale works realized through complex fabrication techniques. Moeller did not propose a specific concept, but noted that his approach is to work closely with the public, then derive his initial concept from those conversations. The second finalist is Nora Valdez. She is primarily a stone sculptor. She's also a community artist, meaning that she often collaborates with the community. She proposed work for all of the sites identified. She envisioned a combination of stone benches and the curved pathway in the center of the site map. In the reading garden, several sculptures of piles of books that could be used either as stools or tables. A tall stone sculpture on wheels depicting large books with children and adults reading, and several benches. And she envisioned for the triangular shaped rain garden, a large open book with faces of characters spilling out and quotes, names, and titles that came from the community workshops that she would host, carved into the book's pages. The third finalist was Priscilla de Carvalho, and she envisioned a modern and dynamic public artwork with strong visual presence, identifying and portraying a number of historical references of the diverse neighborhood, landscape, and community of Dorchester. She was particularly interested in exploring the diversity of Dorchester and highlighting the stories of new immigrants and the importance of diversity in American culture as it is now, and as it can become in the future. She hoped to channel their personal experiences into compelling visual narratives similar to past works she's completed in New York City and Mesa, Arizona. As usual, this was a tough decision. Each of the finalists brought a unique approach and perspective to their proposal, and each has significant public art experience and a strong artistic vision. As the result of several rounds of review that I mentioned before, and including some really thoughtful and constructive conversations with the working group, they recommend Priscilla de Carvalho for the Adams Street branch of the Boston Public Library Public Art Commission. The committee particularly noted Priscilla's collaborative approach to design, her experience in working with a wide variety of communities, her use of color and form to create compelling visual narratives, and her strong artistic vision.
Great, thank you, Sarah. John, would you like to add, or are there any project partners here that we should hear from? Or John, might be a good person to, anything you want to add in?
As Sarah had said earlier, with so many artists to look at over the course of this process, we had an array of works, and those conversations were fascinating, interesting, occasionally heated, but only occasionally. And the three artists that we selected, I think, represented a good array of the sort of projects that were available to us to choose from. But in the interview section, I think Priscilla really stood out for her excitement, energy, and interest in this project, her willingness to connect with the community, and her sense of color and materiality, which we felt would serve this branch of the public library very, very well.
Thank you. It sounds like we have a great pool of people to encourage to apply to future commissions as well. So do we put these people on our mailing list, I guess, the ones who are not being awarded the project but have great potential?
We do typically add them to the public art mailing list.
Great.
So they get the newsletters and then would have calls emailed to them directly as well.
Perfect. Thank you. So commissioners, any comments or thoughts? How about members of the public? Hearing none, I wonder if someone could form a motion to approve the recommendations of the selection advisory group.
Can I do that even though I was on
Yes,
the selection advisory group?
I believe you can.
I make a motion to approve the selection of Priscilla de Carvalho as brought to the Boston Art Commission from the Adams Branch Library Selection Group.
I
Great.
second that.
Camilo, thank you for the second. So I'll read off names. Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So thank you to the group for all the hard work and for the tough decision. And we look forward to seeing this. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so we will now move on to, I believe, our final presentation for the day. Is that correct? Which is Massery Studios. The final design for memory diffusion at Boston Arts Academy. Sarah Rodrigo will give us a brief background. This will be seeking final approval from us. And just to the artists, keep in mind, we have limited time, so 20 minutes. I see a lot of slides, so just make sure you stay on track with time.
Thank you again, Chair Pasnick. So this is a final design presentation for the Boston Arts Academy, which is Boston's only public high school for the visual and performing arts. And it provides a diverse student body, a majority from low-income families, access to a college preparatory arts and academic education. The school's mission is to prepare a community of aspiring artists, scholars, citizens to be successful in their college or professional careers and be engaged members of their community. The school is in the Fenway neighborhood of Boston. And you reviewed the preliminary design, I believe it was in January of this year. So we are welcoming Masari back tonight. They were commissioned for the interior artwork in March 2020, and they'll be presenting their final design for review and vote. So I'm going to hand it over to Ryan Edwards, principal, and Caleb Hawkins, design associate, who will now present their final design. Ryan and Caleb, welcome.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you, Sarah, and everything you've done to help guide this forward. Thanks, everybody. The BAC, we will be direct and succinct. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Sarah. This is our team. We're based in Fort Point. And this project is called Memory Diffusion. It's a monumental media sculpture confronting the ideas of memory through recalled environmental sampling. It captures moments in time within the BAA building and the people who pass through it. This is kind of pivotal to this idea, and I'll expound on it, that the piece establishes and explores the memory of the space, recognizing that remembering the past is not fundamentally different than imagining a potential future. And I'll just take a moment to kind of like bring back the thesis of the piece so that as we discuss the design and how we're approaching realizing it, that can kind of support some of what we're doing. You might recall from our original proposal that the piece is based on an idea of how our minds work through the French philosopher Henri Bergson. And the idea that we actually observe things, remember things based on almost like a sampling process. Things that are exceptional and different, we sample at higher rates and we remember them more dearly. Things that seem quite familiar or similar, in other words, aren't novel, we don't remember as deeply or as clearly. What's fascinating about that to us is that when we remember something, often we're just remembering just an image, just maybe one sample. And our idea that we remember much of it is actually almost like we fill it out, almost as a dream. Bergson postulated, and we happen to agree, and I think now it's been scientifically proven, that when we imagine something in the future, it's the same wheels at work. It's a very similar version of how we kind of build out around an image. That's what's supporting this piece. And I'll hand it over to Caleb to walk us through the design and place it in the building.
Great. The entrance of the building comes off of Ipswich Street, which is right near Fenway Park. As you continue into the building, next slide, you open up into the ground floor area of the building, which has a cafe to the right, a stage, and a grand stair to your left. When facing up the stair, you're able to see the large screen that's mounted against the wall. Next slide. As you see the screen, the artwork spans up into the second floor. The tall two-story screen is in addition to some suspended lighting that fills out the space and comes off the wall. It's designed parametrically to align and coordinate with some of the architectural features within this area of the building. Next slide. The artwork is being able to be seen from most of the ground floor and the second floor and ushers lots of people, other day students or guests to the theater, up into the other areas of the building. The main screen and the lighting are working together off of the same concept of memory. Next slide. Seeing it in the space, the media wall is in a composition to fill out the space and amplify some of the height within this two-story area of the building. Next slide. Seen in scale, it's designed in proportion to address the main stage as well as the stair, is maximizing the length of the wall and composition to some of the seating areas where the public and students will be often frequently seeing. Next slide. In plan, there's some of the dimensions and scales for this artwork against the wall. Here you can see the hatched area is the concrete and the marked lines being the features of the artwork. The first echo, which is one of the hanging elements, starts off the wall and continues outward in a curvature manner that is similar to the curvature of the balcony, with the last echo ending on the top stair of the bleacher. Next slide. In elevation, you can see how all of these parts work together in integration to the building, with the structure above within the plenum space of the ceiling hidden to the people below. And this, as well as the placement of the screen, recognizing its placement in a datum to the lower railing where it terminates towards the stage, and centered on this main area on the lower level. Next slide. To continue to go into depth to some of these components, I'll be going through the screen, the echoes, some of the cameras, and the programming that all come together to make this artwork work. Next slide. First, a little bit more detail on the screen. Next slide. The screen will be mounted against the wall. Noted here, some of the electrical needs have been coordinated with the GC for coring through the wall to hide all wiring for the display. The coring is to be made around a 4-foot space between level 1 and level 2 within the ceiling. Next slide. Some of the components to the screen, after visiting on site and conversations with our consultant, we've decided to go with an aluminum backing. The aluminum backing allows the tiles to remain flat and straight for display, as well as mitigating moisture problems with mounting an alternative wood backing to the concrete wall. The process of assembly would include a mounting of the aluminum rails onto the wall frames to situate the LED tiles that are then mounted to the backing, and a final trim to close up the outside of the screen and protect it from the students or people who are passing by. The display is composed of a total of 75 LED tiles, which are individually serviceable within a larger compartment, as well as individual lights within that. Next slide. Here are some other specs on the decided product that is usually used in other types of artworks. Next slide. An example of the product that's also placed in public areas, high traffic areas, and is designed with reasonable durability for passing of people in spaces similar to the ground floor of the BAA. Next slide. Here you see it in composition on the wall with a person standing on the stage for scale, as well as the next element of the discussion, the hanging echoes. Next slide. The hanging echoes work with the screen within the design. It is in our intention that display and these elements are working together to convey the concept of memory through light and through visual display. Here it's integrated with the screen by its a subtractive dimension for the standardized tiles that we have. The tiles or the echoes seem to come from the screen and into the space as a new media sculpture looking at the boundary between a physical display and a digital display. Next slide. The hanging lighting elements are custom made through various features. Next slide. It's composed of a structural member in the middle, which is mounted with a programmable LED bar and acrylic panels to affect the lighting diffusion from the light inside of the bar. Next slide. For assembly of the echoes, we are working with the construction team for proper phasing to have this installed in accordance to their schedule, as well as their procedures for the rest of the ceiling. But here we're working with the existing structure within the ceiling with a substructure of C-strut that is then able to mount the positioning cables of the members. This would be installed prior to the baffling, which hides the artwork, and each individual member will be prefabricated and brought and installed to site to hang from the cables in the ceiling. Next slide. Here's a closer look from the second floor, observing the light and the screen together, working with the geometrical moves we've decided to blend the two together in our work. Next slide. The additional piece to this is the cameras. The cameras act as an input for our memory creation. Here we have 3 cameras mounted on and within the artwork. Next slide. Each individual camera is specified to target the main area of this grand stair, with camera 1 looking at the stage for any sort of spectacle happenings within the school, events and such. Next slide. Camera 2 looking at the larger bleacher stair for those who decide to linger and spend their time within the space or hang out near the artwork. Next slide. Camera 3 also captures some of the foot traffic of visitors and students on the stairs and the accessible ramp that leads to the stage, allowing many people to be a part of, observe, and be included within the lifetime of the work as they are cycled and recalled through memory. Next slide. The general area of the artwork emphasizes this public space of the building as a gathering space for the program, for the students, and for any sort of special events that may happen. The important piece of these cameras is that they work to feed the memory of our design. From here, the cameras are worked into the piece, but also integrated into the building, leading to our next point of where our programming and server is held. Next slide. The cameras that we have are looking at the FLIR, they're RGB, high resolution, and these cameras are small, portable, able to be hidden and mounted minimally seen from the public below. They're accessed by PoE, allowing them to be powered and data from one connection. Next slide. From here is a general schematic of how all of these pieces work together, from the inputs of the cameras into the computer being processed and out to both the display and the lighting elements. Next slide. Here are a couple of schematics that have been developed through site visits with the consultant, looking at areas of opportunity to integrate our electrical and data needs seamlessly into the architecture. On the ground floor, within the ceiling, there's a J-box that services the power and data to the screen and the camera adjacent to it on the wall. Next slide. And on the second floor, 3 J-boxes mounted within the ceiling near the lighting array, which services the power and data needs for the lights that hang above. All of the power and data will be routed back to server room 121 within the ground floor. Next slide. Our form of memory creation within the artwork is structured by a custom algorithm which makes use of convolutional neural networks for automated video recall. The system analyzes and captures the footage and ranks its uniqueness through its analysis. The footage is then categorized based on its novelty and chosen based on its similarity or dissimilarity to previously captured footage. The selected memory or footage is then sent through multiple passes of image processes that are then sent to the display and affecting the lighting array. Next slide, please.
This is an example of how what the cameras see is actually analyzed and moved through into an abstraction. This is some of the place where our aestheticization of this experience and the expression of memory starts to get realized. Next slide, please. You can see how this starts to move towards something that becomes more and more abstract based on the geometry that's extracted from what the cameras see. Next slide. Here is all of those images placed side by side as it moves from image extraction all the way into material, color, and solid geometry. 3 ideas on what this might look like. It's also perhaps useful to point out that the echoes that are in the piece are all actually programmed to be an extraction of the color of what and motion that is happening inside of the display at all times. Next slide. Next slide. A nighttime look. Thank you. Next slide. This is an overview of some of the public engagement that's happened. We have had already 2 Zoom meeting masterclasses with students in various departments at the school where we've introduced ourselves, the project, made ourselves available, and our studio's work. And we still plan to have an active interface with students with the artwork, exploring how the piece functions and working with faculty and students into ways to introduce the display as a temporary canvas for BAA-driven work. We also plan to collaborate with students to debut the piece, and that could include a potential performance or dedication event that's open to the public. The schedule is exciting, and if anyone's been tracking how the high school is going, they've been trucking along. It's in great shape. We have, next slide, please, built our schedule based on the original contract that we signed and also adjusting to the kind of evolving opportunities to install. Our installation partner has a facility where we can actually receive the LED display and do all of this building and construct this offsite so that we can be in a standby situation for when the building is ready for our installation to come and to phase our installation along with them. So this schedule that you see here integrates the known building conditions and the target of an April potential final design and install and test. We've been to the site twice, meeting with contractors, architects, representatives from the city, and the general contractors. This is from, I don't know, last week or 2 weeks ago, we were at the site. That's the wall that we're discussing. Obviously, the stairs haven't been installed, but that's the cement wall that we're addressing. And I do believe we have one short little animation that will show some of what this might look like in motion. It's notable that in real time, the echoes, the hanging structures would also actually be changing color in time and affected just as if they are a sample from that piece of the display.
So the hanging elements will have some of those characteristics of volume, or they're just a light tone?
No, actually, they will have a characteristic of moving light, of actually that kind of dynamicism. Okay. So they're addressable, and it's actually as if you imagine a sample of that video display is what is pushed to all of those DMX lights there. So they will, that's exactly what I was referring to, Mark.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And one other question that I think came, oh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's actually our final piece. So if you'd like to jump into any questions, we're happily.
One other question that came up before, I think, that maybe you could just clarify again, is the relationship between this and the occupants of the space, how immediate? I mean, it seems like it's more abstract than earlier in terms of the content on the wall. Is it timed that, you know, there's a big crowd there and the wall will be more active, and there's a small crowd there and it'll be less, or is there a gap of time that displaces it? You had talked to us earlier about the relationship between the occupants and the perception of the screen.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly what we're getting at with this memory, and how the piece actually will be observing activity there, and it will recall memories that it is reminded of. So it actually is functioning just like Caleb and I were joking about this earlier. As one walks down those stairs, you might be triggered a memory of this. One time I was walking downstairs just like this when I was in Portugal, and it brings up memories of that. Well, this piece operates in a very similar way, that if people are gathered in such a way on the stage or sitting in certain ways, it will remember things like it and bring them back. Rather than a real-time aestheticization of what's there, it's actually functioning much like our memories, and therefore kind of putting us in that place between both the current moment and that memory.
Okay, thank you. So commissioners, other questions from other members of the commission? Remember, this is final approval, so it's your last chance to ask a question.
I have a comment. I found this exciting when we first reviewed it. I find it even more exciting as it's explained more and more to us. My only reserve was that I think the students are going to find it so exciting that they're not going to get to class on time. I really appreciate all the work that you've done to make this presentation. And I just wanted to continue to say I think it's going to be something that the students, the professors there, and the general public are going to be as thrilled as we are. Thank you.
Wow.
Great,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Bob.
Thank you very much.
Other comments or questions? Hearing.
Thanks, Ryan and Caleb. I know that when we last met for preliminary design, there were some questions about how those sort of objects that trace the stairs would be affixed. And it seems like you've come up with a solution for that. Was that in conversation with the architects and your consultant, and that this was the best solution to move forward? I think it looks great. I just am curious how you got to that place.
Yeah, just to clarify, you're speaking about the suspended lighting elements?
Yes, correct.
Yes, we have had conversations about the baffling system that they have above the grand stair. There is an acoustical panel that backs these baffles, which are around 8 inches long by 2.5 inches wide. And we were originally thinking about some of the areas where it can slip through, but we've recognized that the acoustic baffle is really easy to work with in terms of placing some of these cablings. This has also been taken into consideration in the parametric design to avoid all collisions with existing baffles and only allow the puncture through acoustic panel to be dealt with on site or worked with on site during installation.
And do they move at all, or I mean, if there was a strong wind, let's say indoors, which there won't be, but are they hanging that way, or are they affixed in a solid manner?
The aesthetic for hanging these is to ideally make them float, invisibly floating in the air. So our choice is to use cable, which allows some slight movement with air pressure changes within the building or changes between the large area of the theater above. So there is expected minimal movement of these Ls. This has also been taken into consideration in some of our programming for the camera, adjusting for the views of the camera and this movement and processing. So we've accounted for a slight movement on the circumstance that there is gusts from air pressure within the building, and have touched that through the design physically as well as computationally within the camera.
Great. Other questions from commissioners or comments?
Thank you, Student Masari, for this presentation. And I think as addressing this entire area as a stage, I think in the aestheticization of the artwork, it's become that much more successful in understanding that. And then also even the adaptability of the programming and software for the use of the audience / student population of said stage / venue. I'm wondering, just as technologies arise into the future, if the adaptability of the actual software will be met by you, the artists, in conjunction with the students, so that the actual artwork, of course, will change with time and memory.
That's a good question. I think there's probably two parts to what you're talking about. One would just be the evolution of the piece and how memories are kept and presented over time. So it is designed to be alive, changing, and fully dynamic in that way in perpetuity. I use that term very loosely and lightly, but over the long term. So just as a formal artwork, it has that built-in ability. As far as the ability for it to be updated and continue to have input and accessibility to the students, and being kind of living up to our proposal, but being a canvas and available display surface for student use, that will be dependent on the partnership and the stewardship of the high school faculty. And that's something that we've been really forward working on, and making ourselves available and building something that is adaptable. So that is a priority, and it's something that the relationship with the faculty as they move into this building and as this piece debuts will be solidified.
I would like to add, in addition to some of the screens and cameras that we're using, in regards to the evolution of technology, who knows what may be invented in the next 10 years. Something that we find ourselves grappling with as designers and artists is the composition of the work as a new media piece. Here we're using the screen, we're using structure, lighting, and cameras, all within a ideally cohesive artwork. Oftentimes you see digital artwork confined to the frame of a display, flat and illuminating, typically seen in many other large cities. Or you see illuminated sculptures or chandeliers. But one thing that we've really been trying to work with is to create a piece that mends these two areas of design and artwork in new media, integrating these two computationally, electrically, and even in with the building to have this piece operate as one. So although screens may change, although lighting may change, the composition of these two things together within the artwork for the BIA, I think is a new approach to creating media artworks in the public realm that I hope lasts for more than the next 10 years and is a basis for some of our research.
Maintenance always comes to the foreground in questions in the final review of these. And I guess that this has some unique maintenance concerns because we can't just hire a standard staff to sort of maintain it. It comes with a lot of specialty knowledge from your team. So is there a relationship that you have longer term with this project?
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly, I mean, there are a few different places where maintenance could actually be handled at kind of at a facility level. Just as note, if there is failure in the LED panels, they can actually be front serviced with a tool that we will provide the school with reserve panels that we will be making accessible to the school. So there's actually like kind of a baseline functional maintenance and repair that's available there. As far as oversight and maintenance for a dynamic digital piece like this, we will propose a wireless connection or a web-based connection to the piece so that we can oversee it and take a look at this piece and address any issues should they arrive. And I would say, finally, being Boston-based, our attention to detail and accessibility to the piece and maintenance of it would be swift.
Great. Any other comments from commissioners or members of the public?
Mark, I remember, maybe it was you, Gav, that had the question about the privacy. What happens to the photographs? And I think there were some privacy concerns about what, if these photographs are stored, who would have access to the photographs of the students or the public. I don't know if they've addressed that.
I can address that. I do recall that question. There would be no outside access to the videos as the piece prioritizes and stores them, and they would be all expressly and solely for the purpose of the artwork. And I think the only other point that's come up in our discussions is to the extent that the school would like to have a discussion about that and an understanding with our artwork as it is a closed piece, we'd be happy to have that conversation with the school as well.
So you wouldn't use these images for another installation at another location? These would be solely for this installation, and it'd be up to the school, whatever, if they wanted to burn these after a week or whatever and create new ones, but that's something that you're going to be talking to the school about.
I think everything except perhaps that last point you made. The artwork itself is actually built to do its own remembering, its own prioritizing, and its own discarding of memories it deprioritizes. That would not be an option for the school to actually itself maintain that. That would be something that we're building into the algorithm, that actually the piece functions on its own in that way.
So you could design it so that these much only have a lifetime of a certain span, and then.
Well, much like our memories, there will be some terminal capacity. So that is actually a pretty interesting function of this that will be revealed over time. If something absolutely spectacular happens on the stairway, it's something that this piece will be programmed to remember. And as the same thing happens day in and day out, the piece will be programmed to deprioritize those and eventually sift through and discard memories of that nature.
Yeah, some of this capacity is also determined by hardware. So depending upon the amount of room or length of footage, there's a cycling to keep this full but refreshed. The hierarchy of what's kept and what is dismissed is to be determined on what happens in front of this artwork.
Great.
Sorry, does it remember the video that, that you're seeing as a source material, or does it remember the abstracted images?
Remembers the source material. That's the idea. Yeah.
I wanted to point out also, I think we have a couple people from BPS with us today, Mark and Michael. I don't know if you'd want to.
Sure. Yeah. Would members of the BPS like to say anything? Project partners?
I think I see Tyrone.
Yeah, I see Carolyn as well.
Hi, good afternoon. How's everyone doing?
Good.
My name is Carolyn Meadows Marquez. I work currently with Build BPS, but previously to November, I was the Director of Strategic Initiatives for Boston Arts Academy, and we've been working with this group with Mossery and the Boston Arts Commission. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, commissioners, for commissioning this piece for Boston Arts Academy. We are very excited. Our students are excited. Our faculty excited. The community excited. This is huge for our school community. And the partnership and the engagement that Mossery has had with our students, and it's invaluable for our young artists. So we look forward to the support of this final process and hopefully see the piece when the school opens in September 2022. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn, and also the team. I think we could move on. I didn't see any public raising their hands, so I think we can move on to a motion. Do I hear a motion? Bob, you seemed excited.
Yeah, I move that we accept the final project of Mossery, and I'm not sure where to go other than right there.
You can keep it simple. We may want to say move for final approval, because accepting the piece will happen later.
Okay.
So you want to amend your motion?
Yes, to accepting the what was it again?
Just final design approval.
Final design of the proposal.
Okay,
yes.
Great. So motion
Then
to
we get that down. I'm trying.
Motion to approve the final design submission shown to us today.
Thank you.
So do I hear a second on that?
Second.
Mara, thank you for the second. So I'll read off names. Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. And we look forward to seeing this work in place in the coming months and months, I guess.
Yes,
Very exciting. And I think George Fifield, who is no longer on our commission, would be super excited that this is coming to fruition based on his interest in bringing more digital art to the city of Boston. So I'm sure we need to let him know that this is coming as well.
That's
very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our final topic on the agenda is a call for adjournment. Someone like to move?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you, John. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. So I will read off names. Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. So the motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. What a great series of projects that we got to see today. It's nice to see so much. And thank you to the staff for ushering through so many fantastic projects today. Okay, take care, everyone.
Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.